Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am so happy to see you all again. This series that we are doing today is the Women in AI with Code with Eve. We are all about bringing inspiring women to share the different paths they have taken to find their place in tech and AI. We talk about all the challenges they faced, the unexpected turns, the courage it took to keep going, and the support that helped them grow. And whether you are new to AI or already working with it, or you're just curious about where future technologies and inclusion are heading, you're in the right place. My goal is to inspire you, boost your confidence, and remind you that you are not at all alone on your journey or in your challenges. I am Eve, a Microsoft AI MVP, and I'm excited to bring you today's guest who was a nurse clinician, an entrepreneur, and now leading AI innovation across multiple continents, all while raising her children. She is really the living proof that motherhood and tech leadership don't cancel each other out. So I'd like to invite you to join me in welcoming Samantha.
Hi.
Hi, Samantha. I'm so excited to have a chat with you today.
I'm excited to be here as well.
It's great. What have you been up to nowadays?
What have I been up to? Well, I have been secretly working for a new company that will be announced shortly, and having a great deal of fun because we are really working on the AI strategy when it comes to upskilling capabilities and career journeys of people in tech. So it's been very fun.
That sounds like a lot of fun. But your journey didn't start in tech, and that's what makes it so powerful. You began your career as a nurse clinician.
Yes.
So, what was the moment when technology started calling you?
Well, when I graduated as a nurse, I had zero intent or knowledge that I would ever enter technology. In fact, I remember being in college and friends at the time encouraging me to learn how to code. And I was like, what would I need to know to code for? Like, I'm a nurse. When am I ever going to use this skill? And I went to work in the intensive care unit, which again, we had one computer on the entire ward, and it was only to print out labels for blood samples. That's the only use we had for it. So it was only once I joined as a director of care, one of the first health tech companies in Canada. And I joined as a director of care, not at all on the tech side. However, because this was a long time ago, there was no software for any of the things that we wanted to do. So anytime we could think of a capability or a service or an offering for our customers, we had to rely on a tech team to build it. And obviously, well, they didn't want to. Because that was added work. So I always had to like convince the tech team to look into something. And I'm not a very patient person. And so at some point I thought, well, let me figure it out. Let me give it a try. And I realized that as long as you were patient enough and you were willing to tinker enough, you could usually get to where you wanted to go. And so that's how I ended up very slowly entering the tech world.
And I remember that we have talked about that you started to do some certificates just for fun. And that was also the moment when you needed to realize that tech was not really behind gates. So everyone can start at any age with any background, right?
Yes. So many years fast forward from that initial sort of flirting with technology, if you will. I made a very close friend who was a woman in tech, and she kept saying, "Oh, you'd be great in technology." And I laughed, right? Because I had this image most people have that technology is very gate kept. It's very difficult. It's very complex. You have to learn to code at 5. And if you didn't, well, it's too late for you, to get into it later on. But she kept saying it wasn't. And so for fun, one day she gave me learn.microsoft.com. And
Mm-hmm.
she said, choose a certificate, just any one of them, right? and study for it and do it. I just, by curiosity. And so I chose Power Platform for the simple fact that I had no idea what Power Platform was. And I did the beginner, like PL 900, and I did it within, I think it was 5 days. I was working full time, so I studied a little bit in the morning and then I wrote the exam and I passed really well. And she told me afterward, well, normally that takes a couple of months to study for and pass. And that was my first realization of, well, maybe technology isn't that difficult to get into. And it's all about, are you willing to study? Are you willing to learn?
Yeah, like every day of your lives, pretty much.
For the rest of your life. Yes.
And then once you stepped into tech, things moved very fast. You said that if, for example, a software wasn't good enough, you simply built one yourself. So what did that early hands-on problem solving teach you?
Well, that happened even before that first certification. So after that health tech company, I actually opened my first health tech company as well. And I had this constant frustration that I would look for a piece of software and it either was not customizable to what I needed, or it had way too much. And I didn't need all those things and I didn't want to pay for all those things. And so I started building. And it's really hard to explain, but if you ask me today to work on building a PowerPoint until 3 a.m, I would grumble. I would be like, oh man, I don't want to do that. But whenever I would build software, time would just disappear. And I could easily start doing that at 8 p.m. once my kids were in bed. And I had to put an alarm because otherwise I would just keep going through the entire night. And you get to a point where your eyes are dry and you're physically tired, but your brain is so focused on fixing all the little problems, because when you're building software, it's just like a good idea and then a list of problems. And that's when I realized that you can, and it's all about trial and error, really. And coming from healthcare, I realized none of these errors are dramatic. I can make as many as I want. So as long as I get to where I want to go at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
And as long as you learn from it. Yeah.
Exactly.
So let's discuss a little bit about your current role. So how does it involve AI today? So what does it look like? What do you do exactly?
So the new role that I'm in right now works across sort of 5 different jobs, if you will, or job descriptions. One of the things I'm working on right now is AI enablement inside the organization. So working through the processes with every single department and figuring out where we can build AI agent solutions in order to facilitate our work. So a lot of things we're doing manually right now, they require a lot of time, a lot of effort. They're prone to error. And it's just very frustrating work for a lot of people. So we're trying to see where we can build agentic solutions that would take away those repetitive administrative tasks and have our people focused on the things that they're actually really good at, the special sauce that they bring to the table. So I'm finding those solutions, ideating the solutions, architecturing the solution, and then being tech lead on getting those built. I'm also working on how we're going to enter the market with AI and upskilling and capabilities and the offerings that we will bring to our clients. Working on finding new partners that can elevate the space as well. Working on our relationships with Microsoft, AWS, Google, and the likes, and then working on some of our thought leadership, our content, and our strategies surrounding AI, because there's a lot of hype when it comes to AI, but there's very little value loaded content being shared. And that's where we want to differentiate.
And about that, we will talk a little more. But I want to circle back to something related to your current role. Is the domain also in healthcare and nursing or clinics or something like that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
I just wanted to ask whether your current role is also in the domain, in the healthcare domain or something else.
Not specifically. We serve multiple industries, which include healthcare and manufacturing and client services and all of these different types of areas.
Okay. And what part of it energizes you the most of what you're doing today?
I love strategy. I really, really, really love talking about and building AI strategy because I think that there's a lot of noise when it comes to AI, but being able to sit down and say, okay, right, this is where, the era of AI is going, and this is how we can be a leader in that area, in our own niche, in our own, specialty, and what our mission can be, what our market differentiators can be. And from that, start talking about, offerings and solutions and content that we can create, like going out into the world. And instead of just using all of these negative titles, right? AI is going to come for your job, or AI this, or AI, makes mistakes, or whatever other hype, material or clickbait you can find, really coming with like, okay, if you really want to help your people achieve more with AI, these are actual tangible steps you can take today to help them achieve that.
That's very interesting. And you know what would be even more interesting is to, if you could tell us some of your favorite use cases that you have been working with.
Okay, so one of my favorite is extremely nerdy. It's not even the most complicated one. I find it very, very fun. So obviously, one of my loves is learning. I love learning. I really enjoy learning, which is why tech is, it's a great industry for me.
Yeah,
because it
for sure.
requires learning. But one of the things that I've noticed is when people have come to me and they've said, right now I'm a software developer and I want to get into AI, or I work in healthcare and I want to go into tech, or I just graduated with my, CEST degree and I'm not sure what I want to do in technology. A lot of the times people really struggle to create journeys for themselves, right? And one of the solutions I've been building and that I'm really excited about is an AI solution that takes in your resume, goes and checks your LinkedIn, and then asks you a bunch of questions in a strategic manner to sort of determine what your goals are, right? So where are you starting out from? What some of your goals are, what matters to you, what type of personality do you have, what makes you excited, what do you find dull? And then it will suggest some end goal careers, right? And for example, let's say you say, oh, yes, I want to be an AI engineer. That sounds great. It will tailor make a learning journey to bridge the gap between where you are now and where you want to be. And so it'll say, for example, okay, well, let's start with Microsoft AI 900, and it will surface the content for you from Microsoft Learn and help you prepare for it with quizzes and mini challenges, and it'll help you build your portfolio along the way. It will also teach you the non-tech related skills that you need to get in order to be where you want. And if you say, I want to achieve this in 12 months, it will give you deadlines and weekly homework so that you can sort of track your progress. So the idea is basically that's how my brain works. And that's how I got to where I am in technology. And so it was to feed it into an AI so that anybody can get a Samantha Taylor journey, if you will, for their careers without having to sit down with me for 6 hours.
Okay. Well, and your strength also shows up in your community work. You speak at conferences across continents, and you are taking subjects that are quite complicated, actually, right? So what kind of subjects do you like to bring to these kind of conferences?
AI architecture is probably my biggest go-to conversation. I specifically speak of neuromodular dynamic AI architecture. So it's a very different way of looking at how AI should be built. And one of the reasons that I like talking about that specifically is traditional software engineering is a very sort of boxed in how you do things with very clear step-by-step processes. So learning to architecture AI is a huge leap for most people, and it's very complicated because there's missing modules to make that leap. So introducing AI architecture and the why behind every sort of portion of it is a subject that I love because it helps anybody, a cloud architect, a software engineer, or even just your CTO and CIO, figure out, okay, well, how does AI actually look like in our infrastructure if we want to start building with it?
And your community work goes beyond speaking. You are deeply connected to the Microsoft ecosystem. You're also an MVP.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, congratulations to all MVPs who got the renewal today.
Yay.
You are also an MCP and a community leader. And I'm wondering what part of this work energizes you the most?
As much as I love learning, I love teaching even more. Developing content for people, delivering that content. I love speaking at conferences. I get so energized by coming into a room and talking about something. And I really want to make sure that what I'm bringing is of value to the people in the room. And when I see the light go on in people's faces of like, okay, that changes things for me. And now, I have something that I can use tomorrow. It makes me incredibly happy. So I think the sharing of knowledge for me is why I'm an MCT and why I'm an MVP, because I didn't go out to be an MVP. I did what I love doing. And then somebody was like, that makes you eligible, right? To be an MVP. I was like, really?
Yes. And because you like teaching others, that was mostly your focus of the favorite project, one of yours at least.
Yes.
So what kind of questions do people come to you with most often when they seek guidance?
Most often, the most common question I get is, how do I get into AI? Or number two would be, how do I go from where I am right now, let's say software engineer, programmer, or project manager even, and go into AI strategy or AI engineering? And more often than not, the answer is relatively simple, but people have to be told, like, yes, you can do this. There's no gate. You can just go ahead, knock on the door, go through and do what you have to do to get there. I think, one of the big things for me was there's no gate to entering technology. It's just, are you willing to put in the work?
Yes. You will definitely need bravery and this mindset, as you said. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Let's turn the focus to a little bit more personal area, because many women feel limited by thinking about being a mother, and your story definitely challenges that. Can you talk a little bit about your job and how do you navigate leadership and tech while raising your children?
Realistically, there are limitations. So I'll put it this way. When my husband chose his career or his job, he chose it out of what interests me and what is available to me. And those are really the two only considerations on the table for him. When I chose my career, and more importantly, the type of work I wanted to do in tech and which company to work for, I had a lot more things on the table. So, for example, what are the hours? Are the hours flexible? From where would I work? How much traveling is involved? Would I be able to bring my kids to school and pick them up? Would I be able to accommodate my children's extracurricular activities? What happens if one of my kids are sick? What happens if there's a dental appointment? Because, dental appointments are always in the middle of the day, right? And
Yeah.
so that is a real limitation in the sense where when I decided to go into tech, one of the positive things, many positive things. I mean, that's not why I went into tech, but one of the positive things was technology. A lot of us, we work remotely. It's not, service hours per se. So the hours tend to be a little bit more flexible.
Mm-hmm.
And most of our work is not related to the number of hours per se that we work, but on deliverables, right? Did you do what you needed to do?
Yeah.
And then the company that I work for, I remember while I was doing the interview, something struck me, and it's both of my big bosses, if you will. At some point during the calls, they had little kids that either walked through their office or sat on their lap. And for me, that was like, you work like real people with real people.
Yes.
And that for me was like a huge green flag of they understand that you're a person and you have a family. And if somebody walks up to the background or somebody, interrupts you, even though we tell them not to, you're not going to get, punished for that. So
Yeah.
I think, a big part of it was I structured my career and my job choices around or with flexibility in mind. Then the other thing is I have systems. I have systems for everything. And so somebody on the outside might call me type A because even my laundry is done on a schedule in a very specific way. But all of these systems work hand in hand to keep me afloat and permit me to focus on my work without being constantly distracted by what needs to get done at home because it's constantly being done in automatic. And then finally, I don't let my husband be a babysitter of my children. My husband is a father to our children, and he must contribute to the household chores equally, and he must equally be responsible for pickups and drop-offs. And there is no like, oh, well, your job is flexible and mine is not my problem. That's a you problem. You made that job choice. I did not. That's a you problem, not a me problem. And so we work together, right? We work together to try and, if his day is less flexible that day and mine is, fine. But then, you're going to need to catch up somewhere else. I can't always be losing hours in my day driving. But it was a learning journey for us and a growth journey of like, if you want a wife that is all that in a bag of chips, you're going to need to contribute your fair share.
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing. And as you moved into higher corporate positions, you have mentioned moments where people tried to silence you. Mm-hmm. So what gaps do you still see today when it comes to women entering or advancing in tech?
The reality is, as much as we have made progress, and we certainly have, we still live in a man's world. And so unfortunately, if you are a woman in corporate America, you are going to, at some point or another, be faced with a man or more than one man, or even a woman, mind you, that will try and silence you, mansplain to you, or manipulate you, or coerce you in things that they shouldn't. And this, I mean, I was fortunate enough that it took a long time, I think, in tech before it happened. Like I spent my first couple of years having a fairly positive experience with every single person that I encountered in tech. It took a while until I found myself in a room where I was like, oh, I haven't seen this in a long time. I mean, early on in my career when I was 20, and it was a couple of decades ago, yes, this was a very common thing. I think a couple of things that you're going to experience. You're going to be in rooms where especially if you're very technically knowledgeable, less technically knowledgeable men, or even technological men, but I find it happens more with non-technological men who work in tech, may, on occasion, feel threatened by you because you're a woman and you come with a lot of depth in your technical skills. Once in a while, you're going to get a man in the room that feels very threatened by you, and they will try and put you on the spot in front of your bosses. They will try and, corner you during a meeting, try and make a fool out of you, right?
Yeah.
Or challenge you in ways where the only response is to tell them to stop, and then that makes you look bad, or whatever the case may be, right? They will try and put you on trial, essentially. Always take the high road. Always take the high road. And I always tell women this: remember that men are highly emotional creatures, okay? Way more than women, I find. And you have to demonstrate to everybody in the room that you have full and utter control over your emotion, and that you are here to work, and you know what you know, and you know what you don't know, and you're not concerned with the rest of it. So stay polite, but do not be pushed around. Say what needs to be said. Say it calmly and poised. And when they go on a rant, press on mute, smile, and wait for them to be done. And 85% of the time, the people who matter in the room will notice that that's how you responded. And I mean, it sucks when this happens, but it does happen. So I always take the high road, and I stay very calm and in control of my emotions, and I let that person sort of spiral, if you will. I can note one specific call in my career where I've done this, and the man spiraled, completely into his emotions. And I will remember to this day, because at the end of the call, I was like, I'm sorry that made you feel emotional. And to me, that was like a full circle moment, because how often do you get told in your 20s that women are emotional, right? And that's why they're not in positions of power or leadership, or, if you're assertive, then you're arrogant. But if a man is assertive, he's just assertive, right? And so for me, that was a full circle moment of like, ha.
Yeah. It is always a very difficult situation when you're put on spot, and when you're made, as you explained very well, when you are put on a trial. Then thank you so much for giving some advices. I actually really appreciate those, because it's always nice to hear someone who has already such an experience, to hear how to navigate these kind of challenges as well.
I will say 95% of every single man I have met in technology has been usually the biggest supporters of my career. Honestly, we are an industry blessed with a ton of mature, intelligent, fun people.
Yeah. All right. So thank you so much for being so open and helpful. And I would like to navigate to an area that I'm very excited about. And you have shared already some real world use cases that you are working with, and those situations may connect directly to this topic as well. So we have talked about the AI graveyard phase. That's what you called it. I really like this explanation of it, where companies experiment endlessly but never actually ship anything to production. And really, once you see it, you can't unsee it, right? Because why do you think, so many organizations get stuck in experimentation instead of delivering something real, something, as you said, ROI-driven AI solutions? So, yeah.
Because of the hype surrounding AI. I mean, unless you've been living under a rock, you've heard about agents, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about agentic AI. And because of that hype, there's a lot of FOMO, there's a lot of like fear of missing out that impacts companies. And as a result, a lot of them sort of open Foundry accounts and Copilot Studio accounts, gave it to all of their engineering teams and said, go innovate. And that's it. And so what ended up happening is a lot of organizations have a proof of concept. They have pilots over pilots over pilots over pilots. And all of these pilots are fun projects that were developed by the ideation of a single technologist or maybe two or three technologists, right? But they were never solutioned as a solution to an existing problem that impacts enough people and impacts revenue that we should sit down, review the process, and then figure out how to fix the process, and then figure out what technology to use to fix the problem, right? It's been very backwards. And so a lot of organizations will hire AI strategists and they'll say, right, we need to push out AI and we can use AI for this, and that. And so the AI strategists are like, great. And then they just push out, a crappy POC here,
Yeah.
a crappy POC there and there and there and there. But they never actually spoke to the team whose workflows are going to be impacted. So the POCs end up not actually solving the real problem and only solving a surface level problem, or they are not integrated into the workflows in a way that people can actually use them. They're built from technologists, by technologists, for technologists. And so regular business users are like, it sounds great, have no idea how to use this, right? Or they were created out of pure innovation, but there was no money to be made or saved from this particular idea. So when it gets to pushing it from POC to production, the company's like, well, we don't have the budget for this. And so what ends up happening is you have very quick action to really bad POCs that then die in a graveyard of pilots with very few in production, ROI driven, measurable impact AI solutions. And this is not, if your company did this, your company is not special or more idiotic than any other. Sure. Most companies fell into that trap just because we were living in this bubble, right? Of like, if you're not moving fast in AI, you're gonna lose, you're gonna fall behind. So everybody sort of panicked and just tried to run through the door at the same time.
Yes. But just to clarify, are you referring to solutions and products that would be used internally of the organization mostly? Or do you also consider now talking about products that are used by external users as well?
Both. I mean, internally, we see this a lot, right? Because people build internal tools and then they never get to production inside the organization. But then we've also seen, high levels of for customers or product level AIs that are really not great, and they are pushed to websites and or they stay in a development environment and they never get actually pushed out to customers at all. And so we live in a world now where if you want an AI product for certain things, chances are it exists. Does it do a good job? That's the harder question. Like, yes, you'll probably find 10 AIs that do the thing that you're trying to get, but does any of them actually do a good job that it's worth paying for? That's where it gets a little complex.
That's also a very good point, but something else came to my mind because I see another bottleneck that is maybe not that big of a bottleneck, like taking care of the costs and making sure that it is ready to be shipped and it's bringing value and revenue eventually. Yes. But what came to my mind is also that bringing products to production to external users as well. The big bottleneck I see is security and compliance, because many businesses, what I see now, are very focused on being ready and sure that they are doing the right thing, and then they end up generating a big bottleneck, and they can't flow through it. So
Yeah, cybersecurity and AI is a big conversation topic right now. And there's a few things. So, first of all, yes, AI adds surface to the security question, right? Especially if it's customer facing. However, if you build your architecture for AI solutions with security by design, where security is not an afterthought, it is built throughout the architecture, most of the time you can eliminate that issue and not end up in a situation where you have a POC that cannot be going into production. But it goes back to just build something, right? And so
yeah,
people build something very quickly with no proper security measures in place. And then when they try to backtrack and say, right, we want to get it production ready and they want to implement security, well, now it doesn't work, because you would have to destroy the whole thing and rebuild it to actually build it with security in mind. So I think it's, pausing before you build and actually understand the processes that you're trying to replicate. What does that look? What systems are involved? What security will need to look like before you start actually building anything at all, so that it's included. And then number two, there's a lot of misunderstanding about security and AI. And let's give it to the cybersecurity engineers. They were not trained on this or for this. And so we are asking them to secure this big, dangerous, risky thing. But they're like, hey, this was not part of the modules that I went through to get into cybersecurity. So they are having to learn how to do cybersecurity in an age of AI. And a lot of the times we are not giving them the time and the SME access to be able to figure it out.
Yes. And I think we were a little focused until now in our conversation on the problem. And you have mentioned a few solutions as well, but let me try and unfold it a little and go by one. So first of all, how do you see the leaders could be encouraged or supported so they can think beyond the hype and focus on the measurable value?
I think you have to take a breath when it comes to AI, and you have to remember that it must go through the same tests, the same strategic tests internally as any other piece of software or higher. So you have to stop and think, okay, how do we want to use AI? What place should it take within our company? What should be its goal? Are we trying to first make operations faster and more efficient? Are we trying to achieve more with the people that we have instead of having to increase our headcount substantially? Are we trying to better customer service? Are we trying to expand our offerings to our clients so that we can, be novel? You have to sort of figure out what you're trying to achieve with AI, right? What is the end goal here? Then you need to, instead of jump into ideation and building, let's say you want to fix internal efficiency. Start by figuring out all the efficiency problems. Don't even think about how you're going to fix it. Just identify all your efficiency problems.
Yes.
And then from that, build out possible use cases. And then all of those use cases, they need an ROI test, right? So how much money is this going to allow us to save and or make? How much is it going to cost to get built and maintain? And is there infrastructure changes that we're going to have to take place? Then do a chokehold test. Like within a year, are we going to have saved or made enough money for it to cover the cost of actually putting it in place, right? Is it feasible for us right now? Do we have the infrastructure to do it? Is our data ready to do it? Then you get to architecting it properly, which means you need to sit down in the room where people are doing the process manually and watch.
Yeah.
And figure out what is working. How are they making it work right now? What is the magic that people are doing that is causing these processes to work? And then work with them on figuring out how to build an infrastructure and an architecture that's actually going to, fix that problem. And then only once you have that architecture with security by design, you start building. And then you pilot the crap out of it with those users. You take their feedback, you implement it, you pilot it again, and you do that until you get to a consensus of, okay, we are ready. Then you put it into production. Then you need to remember that your business users are not technologists and they need to be taught how to use the tool. And you have to teach them how to use the tool. And then you have to evaluate the benefits of that tool on a quarterly basis at first, and then an annual basis to make sure that it is still worthwhile. So what does it come down to? It comes down to the same way or the same process, the same decisions that you would take if you were to change your CRM.
Mm-hmm. And you have mentioned that there is a shift now in leadership, the use of technology. There is a shift in how often we need to learn new things. But that brings also some shifts in the culture, I think, of the organizations. How do you see that?
When it comes to implementing AI inside of companies, I think companies have to decide what the messaging is going to be around it, right? Why are we using AI? What's the goal here?
Yeah.
And I always go back to a company CEO that I spoke to earlier in the year. And he said, we want to use AI because we have a really great team. We've been able to achieve a lot. And we want to figure out if we can grow year over year with that same team. Because whenever you want to grow and you have to increase your headcount substantially, there's always a risk that you're going to cause a major rift in your culture. And they wanted to see if they could use AI to avoid that or delay it by enabling their teams in their organization to achieve more. And I thought that was beautiful because a lot of companies, obviously go into, well, how can we use AI to decimate our teams, right? And more often than not, when that's the approach, they fail miserably at it because their approach is move fast, build quickly, and they build a whole bunch of crappy AI solutions that don't end up doing the job. And so they fire people and then rehire people because, well, they
might do something better.
Exactly, because they never understood the magic in people's heads as to how they did things. Rather than saying, okay, we're going to use AI to do this automated manual tool or task, and we're going to take our people and refocus them where we can grow revenue, where we can be more creative, we can achieve more as a team, we can offer more personalized service or whatever the case may be, right?
Yeah. Yes. And we have been discussing the leaders, but I do see that shift needs to be discussed also for developers as well, because we see that, okay, the developers also need to change, their skills and mindsets should be changed as well. So do you also have some experience what can help the developers to change their mindset and be able to avoid the graveyard and deliver real outcomes?
Most technical people I've spoken to, programmers, software engineers, etc., they fall into one of three camps. The first camp is, I think AI is crap and it's not going to provide any value, and I refuse categorically to learn anything about it, and I'm going to stand in its way. You, my friend, will eventually end up fired and retired, even if you're 25 years old. We are in the era of AI. You either get on the boat or you get out. Whether you agree with it or not doesn't matter. At the end of the day, this is what's happening to people that I see that have this attitude. They eventually get pushed out of the door. So please do not be that person. because you have valuable knowledge and expertise, and we don't want to see you out the door because you're going to leave us with nothing but junior developers. What are we going to do? So there's that camp. Then there's the second camp of I love AI and I'm going to build AI, but they think that they can build it today with the knowledge that they have today. And so they try and build AI the same way you build software, and it doesn't work. And so it gets very frustrating for them. So I tell them, actually, building AI is extremely counterintuitive to everything you've learned so far. So you need to go back to the drawing board a little bit and learn how to build AI from scratch. Like, don't assume that this is like any other technological shift that we've had. You need to learn a new way of working, and that's quite difficult. You can absolutely do it, but you need to take a couple steps back. And then the other group of individuals that I've seen in the programming world are doing really, really good because they have positioned themselves as learners and figuring out how to use AI, how to build AI, how to elevate AI. And they've also remembered the value that they bring that AI cannot replace. When you are developing using AI programming tools like GitHub Copilot, right? You're not supposed to just sit back and say, right, build me an app. Mm-hmm. It can do code pretty well. It cannot architect anything. Yeah. You need to be the architect of the software that you're building. You need to think through, okay, this is what I want it to do. This is how it needs to look. This is how it needs to function. So I'm going to need to architect it with that piece, that piece, that piece, that piece. And then you go to Copilot and you say, right, we're going to start with this piece. I need code for function X, and these are, the components. And here's how I like my functions built. Like, this is my recipe for function. And then it goes and it builds it for you. But you're supposed to be Tony Stark, right? You're in control, and the AI programmers are junior developers. You need to watch them and you need to direct them.
Yes. Yeah, it came to my mind while you were explaining these ideas on how to improve the mindset and the skills of the developers, that I can kind of see some shift in the positions as well in the organizations. Like, the position of being an engineer versus a senior engineer has had a shift already from what it looked like. I don't want to say something stupid, but a few years ago. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's all coming back to what you have said, that you need to, as a senior engineer, you already are an architect, and you need to be able to perform those tasks as well.
Instead of having, a team of mid and junior level engineers below you taking your architecture and building it, you are going to have, a bunch of AI programmers that are, let's not forget it, junior programmers.
Yeah.
They have great syntax, but they're still junior.
Yeah, they haven't seen so many things like us, right? Yeah. So thank you so much for this conversation. I think it was really valuable to walk through on all these, how to get out from the graveyard things. And I'd like to zoom out a little and ask you some more general things, because I'm really excited to hear, looking back at everything, what are you most proud of?
What am I most proud of? Mm-hmm. When I entered tech, I was told that there was a mold in technology. The websites are supposed to be blue, gray, and white. Your branding is supposed to be blue, gray, and white.
Yeah.
You wear graphic tees and jeans when you go to conferences, and that's it, right? And that's the mold of technology. And I remember my website was purple. Like, I don't mean a little purple, like very purple. Every piece of branded material that went out on my LinkedIn was pink and purple. I showed up to conferences in dresses, in high heels or flats with sandals, looking extremely girly. And so much so that my first conference deck was a pink PowerPoint. Now, I'm not saying you need to, vomit pink everywhere, but what I'm proud of is I didn't listen to that message, and I went out the way that I am, with my, special sauce. And I think it earned me a lot of brownie points in authenticity. And I have never had a man tell me that my PowerPoint was not as useful as somebody else's PowerPoint because it was pink. In
Yes.
fact, I've been told your branding is awesome, right? And it's bright and it's lively and it's vibrant. So I think one of the things I'm most proud of is I entered an industry that is very aesthetically controlled, in a sense, as weird as that sounds. Like, even though in tech most of us just don't bother to wear anything but t-shirts, right, when we're developing, there's a lot of like unwritten rules about how women in particular are supposed to appear in technology, right?
Yeah.
You're not supposed to look too feminine because you might disturb that gentle masculine ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
And I entered in full girl mode, and I was greeted, very friendly by the environment. And I'm happy that I didn't listen to that advice, because I kid you not, it came from a woman.
Which is just as normal as, dressing up with like a shirt and just a t-shirt or a trousers. That's it. Okay, thank you, Samantha. One more question before I let you go. I would like to hear one story from you that you wish more people knew about you.
Oh my goodness. A story people wish. Oh my gosh, that's an excellent question. I don't know. I'm pretty open about who I am. Um, I would say that one of the other things I'm proud of in technology is I have always focused on building my career and my reputation on sharing knowledge and nothing else, and quality knowledge. I've never used clickbait. I've never used, negative titles. In fact, I refuse to use any of them to attract views and whatnot. I've, never used hype. I've always focused on just trying to share what I know and hoping that one person finds it useful. And I refuse to do it any other way. And it has led me here. So what I would tell people is, you can go on LinkedIn and just be a nice person and share the things you know. And if you do so consistently and genuinely and with enough kindness, and you answer your DMs with politeness, your career will naturally grow. And isn't that a beautiful thing, that you can do the right thing and good things happen to you for doing the right thing? Like, that doesn't happen in every area of life now. And I find that in our industry, it does happen. And that's really awesome.
And I totally agree with you. And I really like your final thought that if you do something good, that can bring you something good as well. And that's so nice that it can happen like this.
Same thing with this video that, these series
Yeah.
that you're doing, right? You are bringing people in front of other people so other people can learn, and that's genuinely just good and valuable, and it allows people to grow, including yourself.
Yes, and I do see that I am growing as well, which is really nice to see. So I'm very thankful for you too as well, for being here today and sharing your story with us, the experiences and the way you approach or see challenges, or how you could give us some nice advices on how to get out from the AI graveyard. It really gave us so much to think about and take with us. So thank you, Samantha, again.
Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure. I hope everybody can walk away with at least one nugget of information that will be useful to them.
Thank you, thank you. And if you would like to connect with Samantha, you can find her on LinkedIn. You can see it below as well on the screen. And with that, Samantha, I am very, very thankful again for your time and for being here. And I hope to see you soon again.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Take care. And I'd like to bring up the new Women in AI session that's going to happen on the 12th of August, and I'll be welcoming Noelle. She will take us through her own path into AI, the moments that shaped her career, and the lessons she has learned. So stay tuned to hear more, and if you follow me on Twitter as Eve Party or on LinkedIn, you can find me as Eva Party. You will find out all you need about the next episode. And if you need even more inspiration, you can check out the conversations I had with other women this year. You can watch the recordings on YouTube or listen to us while you're on your way through Spotify. I'll share the links in the chat too. And with that, I thank you so much for sticking around. I can't wait to see you next time. Bye.